Welcome to Mishna study. We're up to Masechet Demai, Perek Mishna Aleph. Over here starts to get fun. We're going to speak about how to separate Maaser. So this is going to be a case where a person goes to a baker and he's buying bread from the baker and he wants to, right, everything he buys is Demai, and he wants to now separate Maaser. He just needs to separate everything that he needs to do in order for him to eat the bread. So what do you do? That's what our Mishnah is going to focus on. הלוקח מן הנחתום, כיצד הוא מעשר? נוטל כדי תרומת מעשר וחלה, ואומר, אחד ממאה ממה שיש כאן, הרי בצד זה מעשר, ושאר מעשר סמוך לו. זה שעשיתי מעשר, עשוי תרומת מעשר עליו, והשאר חלה. מעשר שני, בצפונו או בדרומו, ומחולל על המעות. Okay, so a person, he buys bread from a baker. How does he separate maaser? So remember, what we're buying from the baker is demai, right? He's untrusted. We have to separate a couple of things. One is we need to separate challah. We have to remember challah, everyone needs to separate it. Whenever you're making bread, you need to separate 1/24th. The baker himself needs to separate 1/48th. Every Ba'al Bayit has to separate 1/24th. Okay, that's about, right, it's about 4% of what you have, of the total, right? So you need to separate that for halal, and you also need to separate Terumat Maaser. Remember, the 1%. You would have sent 10 to the Levi, and the Levi would have sent a tenth of that to the Kohen. So it's 1% that's going to the Kohen. We need to separate that. Now, how do we do this? So what we do, I have a piece of bread here. I'll give you a nice little demonstration. You take a piece of bread. Now you're going to separate. We're not going to actually separate. You're going to set aside, right? So you're not going to physically pull it apart. I'm going to pull it apart just to show the amount that you're doing, right? But it's going to be this much. That's on the side of the bread, right? We're going to keep it attached. And what we're going to say is he says, from the entire piece of bread that he has, right? So first of all, he separates enough for Terumat Maaser and Chala. So if it's this much amount that he separates, right, that's going to be enough for the Terumat Maaser and Chala. I'm going to keep it connected, right, because we need to do this all while it's connected. So he takes that piece and he says 1/100th from the entire bread that's here, right? That's going to be in this portion. That's going to be the Maaser on the piece that we split off, right? So 1/100th of the total bread. Ushar Maaser samuchlo. The other Maaser, right? Remember, we're saying we need to separate Maaser first before we separate Terumat Maaser. We need to separate 10% before we separate with 1%. So I'm going to say 1/100th is going to be here, and the other 9/100ths are going to be here. So we're going to have 10, right? 10 out of 100. 9 is going to be part of the whole bread, and one of those is going to be part of the one that we're splitting off. Right? The idea over here is the part that we're going to split off, we're going to be able to give that to the Kohen, and the rest of the bread is going to be intact for us to eat. So now we said, now that's going to be the Maaser, right? So 9 is part of the whole bread, and one of that is going to be part of the one that we're splitting off. Ush'ar Maaser Samur, Zeh she'asiti Maaser, right? What I separated Maaser, right? Those 10, right? The 9 plus 1 over here. Asui Trumat Maaser Alav. That's going to be Trumat Maaser, right? From that, I'm going to separate Trumat Maaser on the entire, on the 10, right? So if I separate 10 over here, so the one portion that I mentioned over here, that 1, is going to be the Trumat Maaser from the Maaser, right? That's going to be 1 out of the 10. Ve'ashar Hala. The rest that's in here is going to be Hala. That's challah that you need to give to the Kohen, right? So now I have this piece that we're going to split off. We're going to give this whole thing to the Kohen because what's in it? We have the Terumat Maaser and the challah that's in this piece. Now, what about Maaser Sheni? Remember, we need Maaser Sheni also. So now I say Maaser Sheni. Maaser Sheni is a portion that I need to go ahead and take it to Jerusalem, eat it there myself. Bitzfono o budromo. So I'm going to say, okay, that's on the northern side or the western side of the bread. I'm going to put that over here, let's say, right? Somewhere totally different. And I'm going to now redeem that onto ma'ot. I'm going to redeem it onto coins, right? Then I'll take those coins and I'll take that to Jerusalem and eat it over there. So interestingly enough, what do we do over here? We separated Hala. We separated Trumat Maaser, actually in the reverse order, right? We separated Trumat Maaser first, then we separated Hala. The only way we were able to separate Trumat Maaser is if we had the Maaser first. So first we separate 10%, and then we separate that 1 from it. That 1 plus the Hala we give to the Kohen, and then we designate another 10% elsewhere for Maaser Sheni that we redeem onto the coins. That's how we do this. That's how we separate Maaserot and Eretz Israel. That's how anyone would do if I would separate Maaserot if they bought something from a Nachtom, from a baker. Now Rambam just asks at the end over here, why do we separate first the Maaser before the Hala? Right? He says the Gemara, the Yerushalmi asked this. Right? It would have made sense for the Hala to come first, because that's what we were obligated when we entered Eretz Israel. As soon as we entered Eretz Israel, the pasuk says, right? Hala, you have to separate Hala first. So why are we separating Maaser before Hala? And Rambam says the reason we pushed it off was because Maaser itself is called the Reshit. Right? Maaser is Reshit. It's the beginning. It's the first. Right? So that's why we'll separate Maaser first. And that's why we do Maaser Rishon first. The Trumat Maaser is part of the Maaser Rishon. Then Hala, and only afterwards do we have the Maaser Sheni. So that's the basics. That's how we separate. That's how we separate Maaser, Trumot and Maaserot. Sorry, not Trumot, right? Right? We separate Maaser, Trumat Maaser, and Hala whenever we buy something from a baker.